Good. Good evening all. Welcome to the Finance and Audit Committee on Wednesday the 14th of May 2025. Can I just remind everyone to put their phones on aeroplane mode, please? Thank you. And I'll start with the first part, public participation. I think we have Councillor Braygrove, if you'd like to speak. You've got 3 minutes.
Okay.
And if it can just make sure that it's to do with the agenda as well, if that's okay.
Fear not.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Councillor Sharon Braygrove, and I'm here tonight to ask 2 questions. They pertain to the grant budget. And this council's annual grant budget is £42,000. And just 2 months in, our spend to date is £10,496. The remaining budget, £31,503. And the proposed spend on tonight's agenda is actually £32,956.86, which will be an overspend of £1,453.11. If approved in full, the grants on tonight's agenda would exceed the entire year's allocation in just 8 weeks. In just 8 weeks into this financial year. Does this mean no further funding will be available for any community groups for the remaining 10 months? So that's question 1. And just for a point of clarity, I'm asking this question. Please can somebody confirm that a councillor, although maybe not on a particular meeting, the same as I'm not on this meeting tonight, which is why I'm speaking from a different place, should be asked to leave on a closed item along with members of the public, or whether in fact they can actually stay in the meeting as long as they don't speak and don't vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'd like to move on to 2, which is to receive apologies for absence, and they are Councillor Winter, Councillor L, Councillor Rustem and Councillor Tempe. Thank you. And then 3 is to receive declarations of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests. Do I have any? Yes.
Member of Rother District Council and with the grants closely associated with Bexhill United Football Club, although not officially, but fine.
Okay. Thank you. Then to 4, which is Chair's announcements. There are none. 5 is to approve the minutes of the meeting of the 9th of April 2025. Do I have a proposer? Thank you. And a seconder? Thank you. And a vote? Thank you very much. Moving on to 6 is governance and accountability. I'm just going to do A, B, C, D and E and ask if there are any questions on that at all. Can I move forward, or are there? Councillor Wilson? I'll give you a minute if you like.
Yeah, I think if you're lumping them all together, there's an awful lot to...
Okay, we can go with just A if there's A.
One at a time. The one thing I would like to mention on here, and I don't know whether it's relevant or not, but on page 3,
yes,
additional verge cutting,
yes,
it appears that there are some councils on Bexhill Town Council that believe that all verges get an extra cut in Bexhill that we pay Sussex County Council for. That is not true. If you're in the rural region of the Bexhill area, you don't get an extra verge cut. So as an example, if you go onto East Sussex County Council, there's a map there that shows what is urban and what is rural. And if you're rural, we don't pay for an extra cut because East Sussex will not permit an extra cut for the rural area.
Okay.
I've no idea why, but where I live, I don't get an extra cut. So a lot of our residents don't get the same benefit as some of our residents. It depends where you live. Okay. It's worth bearing that in mind because I think a lot of people believe that the verge cutting is for all verges and it's not.
And you don't pay for that in your area, is that correct?
I pay for my verge cutting under East Sussex County Council, but I don't get an extra one that the town council pays Sussex for verge cutting.
Okay. Okay. We can maybe look at that with town rangers at some point.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anything else on there that anyone would like to? Yes, Councillor Flynn.
I'd just like to highlight the internal audit that was conducted, and in particular, I would like the paragraph noted, if I can read it.
Yeah,
out.
of course. Yeah.
It says here, this is by Mulberry Local Authority Services, who did our internal audit. It is clear that the Council takes governance, policies and procedures seriously, and I'm pleased to report that overall the systems and procedures you have in place are fit for purpose, and whilst my report may contain recommendations to change, these are not indicative of any significant failings, but are rather pointers to improve upon an already well-ordered system. And I think that speaks volumes, and if we could have that in the minutes and as an appraisal of how our staff have and ourselves have managed to sort of deal with the finances over the year, I think it speaks volumes.
Yeah. I believe at the end as well, the final internal audit, it says points carried forward, and there are none.
You're correct.
Because we were told that was because there is nothing else that needs doing, and it's really good job from our RFO and team, the whole team. So yeah, well done. Thank you.
I do have another question, Chair, if I may.
Yep.
I raised it last month,
Yep.
but it was suggested to leave it for this one about the amount of money we have on deposit gaining interest in, I think it's in the unitary.
I think that's in the questions. Questions with when reserves will be reviewed. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think.
And I was told it would be at this meeting when the end of year balance is done, to see whether we were able to move some more onto deposit, because it suggests we've got an awful lot in sitting there not doing anything for us.
Okay.
And the amount of interest we got last year was nearly £8,000, whereas the previous year I think we hardly had any interest because of the decision that I raised initially, and then it was increased, and I think we put something like 150,000 on deposit somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I think now is probably the time to decide whether we can increase that, because it's, with interest rates at 3, 4, 5%, it's quite easy money, and it seems a waste if we're just leaving it sitting in a non-interest bearing account, accepting that we've got a few actions coming down the train tracks that we need to bear in mind, but those are in earmarked reserves anyway. So I'd just like to raise that as a discussion point now as to whether the finance can...
If we can leave that as a question at the end, if that's okay, and then get back to you. But I remember that 150,000 was the maximum that we could put under
in that account.
In that reserve, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying open up another account for...
Well, there's a lot of town councils that have millions sitting in their reserves,
so they must be able
and
to
I'm
do
sure
it.
there must be other accounts that can't, any town or parish council can't be restricted just one account. Is and if it is, I can't believe that would be reasonable, because a larger town like I can't think of the largest town, but there are bigger towns than us that have been going a lot longer, and they would have a third of their precept when their precept is 4 million quid. Seaford's precept is over 3 million, so they would have more than £150,000 on deposit somewhere. So at the very least, I think we should investigate the options.
Yeah. Okay, can we put that as a... would you like it as a question at the end, or would you like it as a motion?
The issue is, if it's a question, then it won't
we
get an answer as such, because it's just informational. So I
put motion for it.
So I would like a motion to, at the very least, I'm not sure of the words, but to investigate how much we could put on in another deposit type account.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Flynn.
Yeah, I wonder whether the clerk could find out from the financial officer whether there's any advice you could give us on this particular subject at the moment.
Yes, that's good. Yeah, you're correct. There is 150,000 sitting in a long-term high interest account with Unity Trust. That is due to mature around about mid-June. So we can look at that then, because obviously that will come off, and then look at what other options there are out there. Obviously, potentially putting another amount back on, finding out how much we can put on that, and whether we look into opening another high interest deposit account, as it were, whether that's long term or 12 months. That's something we can investigate, and I'm quite happy if the clerk is for me to look into that further.
Okay.
Yeah, if you guys want to put forward a motion on that, then we can look into that.
I will put forward the motion that the RFO has just suggested that she could do, which is to investigate and wait until the current 150 expires in mid-June and see whether there's any variance that we can increase that and where it goes. I think we need to trust
So
our...
could I just check what that motion would be when you're ready, please?
Let me just write
Yeah,
it down
that's
in
fine.
my head.
It just seems a great opportunity when we do have money to, it will just create greater money.
Yeah. Well, we always need to have reserves, really. So.
We do, yeah. Normally, I think it's 30% or 35% of your precept you should have in general reserve, which is now somewhere around 350,000. So, and looking at the earmark reserves, we have sufficient to do some moving around, I would suggest, even with what's coming down the train tracks that we know of.
Can we think of some specific wording?
Okay.
Because I don't want to put the wrong wording.
It is to ask Bexhill Town Council RFO on the expiration of the current investment to find a suitable reinvestment with a view to increasing that value.
Okay,
That
so
sound
just to
good?
clarify,
Yep.
the wording's fine, but basically you're asking us to look at other options
Yes.
to increase the bond that we've got.
Yes.
Cool.
Okay. Do I have a seconder on that? Yeah. And a vote? Yeah. Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions on, as I said, I can do it separately, but A to E on 6? No? Can I move forward? I'll let you.
I'm fine.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, so moving forwards, right, we're on grants and donations.
Sorry,
Sorry,
you confused me when you said A to E,
sorry.
because I was thinking appendix, not
Okay.
paragraphs. And I noticed 4 of them are to receive and 1 is to note. I'm just worried about the email reserves. Are we receiving it, or are we definitely reinforcing to say yes, we agree with where that money is? From B3, there's been suggested extra earmark reserves that have appeared in F for like the welcome signs. There's £10,000.
Yeah.
Is us receiving it, approving it? You see what I mean?
Yeah. I believe we.
Because I don't want to argue with it, as
yeah,
it's good, but do we procedurally need to go yes?
Okay. No.
You can just note it. And,
Okay.
yeah.
I believe
So we've received it.
we've received it.
You're
Yeah, I
just
think it's just
receiving it
noting
and
that we've
reviewing it and
received.
taking it.
Yeah.
Sorry,
As
we did.
written.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, no worries. So I'll move on now to 7, and that's grants and donations. As you have seen, we've had a few organisations that have come forward for some grants. And if I start from the top, if that's okay. Yeah, Councillor Drayson.
2 things. 1, to restate my connection with Bexhill United, but also just to go back to the introduction to this. Paragraph 1.3 says only 1 application has been received to review and decide within the policy. And yet we're presented with 5. Is one of those 5 the one that's policy compliant? I suspect if so, it's the first one, and the others are
Yeah,
not.
go through.
It's a typo.
So they're all compliant. They're all
So if you have a look, there is one where you haven't received bank statement
yeah.
or constitution, but they're all up for discussion.
Right.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
just a typo.
fine.
That answers your question then.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Plim?
Yeah. On that note, you said the one that we've not received bank statements. That means by default, does that one fall off the list of applicants because they haven't met the criteria?
I believe that would be up to us again, but I believe that yeah, so it is up to us still.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that's one that can either send back bank statements at another time. Okay. So yeah, so I'd like to start at the top. And any questions on that, or any discussion, should I say?
The top being
White Racing, yeah, white label events.
Yeah. And I got the impression, I used to get the impression that other people saw applications, and I don't always get to see applications. I don't seem to get emails with the details behind these. All I get is this list every time. And I know that white label events would be a really good event for the town because this person has done. But has everyone got pages and pages of background, or do we now leave that entirely to the clerk and we just get told if it's compliant or not?
Through the chair, it was sent out today. It wasn't on the original, so it was sent out to us today because I'd noted that and I asked for it.
Okie dokie, thank you. Right, sorry.
But it is usually sent out before, so yeah. I mean, we can.
So sorry. So while I had that,
Yeah.
white label events, I would fully support that application because it's for a free event in the town, and previous events by white label events have been excellent.
Councillor Flynn?
Yeah, I noticed in the past that we funded an event that took place last year for the same company. Although we only funded them to the limit of £5,000. Bearing in mind that the actual budget for the overall year, what people ask for shouldn't necessarily be what they're going to end up with, because we've got a budget to be mindful of. However, also mindful of the fact that this is the only time of the year where people can ask for these larger amounts of money, and so after that period, then we'll be going back into smaller amounts before we go into.
They do have September to ask.
Oh, sorry, September.
Yeah, they have January, May, and September. To ask for the larger amounts.
But this event is in September. So
Yeah.
This is
This is it.
I understand.
I mean, I'd like to add something to it. Is that we have been asked for a considerable amount of money here, just in the month of May, which actually brings us over what we're left to spend. And as you said before, is just because they've asked for that money, it may be that without sounding, but it's probably got around that we are giving out money and that people just go for the top amount and see what they can get really. I'm all for supporting, organisations around Bexhill, but we do have to be sensible in that we have £42,000 for the year, and having been asked for over £32,000 in May, and brings us over our limit, is we do have to be a little bit sensible of what we offer. And realistically, again, this is a personal view, but if we give them something, then it's better than nothing. So I think we have to be sensible with it, look at what they've asked for, and maybe say we can't give 7 and come up with an amount. I don't want to say an amount now, but if someone's willing to come up with an amount, or I can come up with an amount that I think would be sensible, and then we can vote on that. Councillor Drayson?
It's no matter which way you do it. I mean, because from my point of view, actually, I'd be saying no to the other 4. So there would be money available for the 7,000. So I wouldn't want to, on anyone, I wouldn't want to put a figure into it, because we might, unless we've got the option to go back at the end.
So can we do that? Should we do that?
I don't know if we have.
Should we
Probably
say?
not
So
allowed
we've spoken about white label. Let's move to the next one, and just consider whether we're doing it or not, and then we can go from there. If that's
Well, if we were going to do that, we'd have to then probably have a vote on each one to show we're agreed in principle to that one.
I think
Otherwise, it would be a.
could we potentially go and have a quick overview of all 5 and then revisiting? Because if we're talking about white labour, they could be adversely affected because we're talking about them first, and it's not necessarily their fault that they're first on the list. And others could be adversely affected if we give money. So maybe we should go through and review all 5 and then go back to the top, so we've had a view of all of them.
Yeah.
okay? Yeah. So, Councillor Flynn?
Yeah, am I missing something here? All 5, I've only got 4.
No, there's 5.
Table 1, 2, 3, 4. White label, Bexhill United, Pelham, Bexhill Breathers.
Hug.
Bexhill and Rother homelessness.
Hug.
Oh, I've got that one, haven't you?
Oh,
Oh. No, I haven't got that one.
okay. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. We can do that, Councillor Wilson.
I
So
think
we.
it would be fairer on all of them if we did that.
Yeah. Okay.
If I could just, before we move,
Yeah.
white label, they could have submitted in January, and last year they were very late in submitting it, and the 5,000 we gave them last year, they still lost money on the day. It's a brilliant event, and it brings a lot of people in from outside of Bexhill,
That is good.
which is what a lot of traders are after, rather than the same people. So there's some real advantages of engaging with white label, but I would have preferred it if they submitted it earlier. And to me it's quite indicative, and I've heard what you said, Chair, that the word is getting out that we have this money, and we increased it last year, and we've got the capacity to increase it up to 400,000 if we want to. We want to be a really positive town council, and it's pretty clear to me that 42,000 isn't enough to support these community activities that there are in our town. So I think we need to think about that, but that's probably for another day.
Yeah. So, okay. So we've sort of looked at white label, Bexhill United Football Club. If we look at that one, they are asking for replacement floodlights and sponsorship of 2 to 3 teams training for coaches. Now, sponsorship really usually is by businesses in the town, and it usually does work. You know, I've seen a few football teams putting out there that they just say, you know, each business can even put £20 or £50 in, and then they will choose a business rather than, you know, looking at a business and saying, oh, we need £500 for our kit or whatever. I've seen, and that is a really good idea that they could do, is go out there and say, you know, to each business, just give us £20 or £30, and we'll actually pick out the winner, and they would be our sponsors for the year, rather than asking for the big numbers that some businesses can't pay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of businesses, I'm sure, that are willing out there to give £20 or £30 or £50. There are some businesses that can't afford it, of course, but I think that would maybe be something that they could do. But yeah, they're asking for £2,000 to £5,000. Don't know if anyone has any comments on that.
The only comment I would say, Chair, is that this will be an annual cost, because most of that is to remove the floodlights, and that will be every year, and they've paid for that themselves up until now, and I think it's the pinch on the change in the maintenance of the area that they are now short of cash, and Bexhill United going through some administrative changes as well, with the chair being changed. So I think there's a little bit of nervousness around the football club potentially having some finances in the future. We should support our town football side, I think, because they not only attract people to our town but spread the name of Bexhill when they go and play away matches. And if we don't ensure that they are allowed to carry on financially, it would be a real change if they go down from where they are now, because they don't have the facilities, and you have to have floodlights to stay in the in that league that they're in now. But it will be an annual cost, because the floodlights have to come down every year.
Okay, Councillor Drayson.
Yeah, I think this refers to replacement floodlighting, not the moving of them. 'Cause if
Right, okay. Yeah, I
there's
did
two
wonder
that
it
get
said there,
moved
yeah,
to the
replacement.
sideline every year.
Yeah.
They do have sponsorship from other places for the teams. Training for coaches, to me, and I say I love the club and I do, but Little Common is also available. But this to me looks like running costs, and
Yeah.
that's not what we're supposed to be doing with our grants.
It does say on their grant application under item 10, removal and re-erection of the floodlights.
I
It
guess
doesn't
that'd
say-
be once. I guess there was.
They're saying that's
Oh, that's
2,200, that's what it says.
Oh right, that would be yearly then, yeah.
So that will be an
Okay.
annual cost.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying in item 10, which I read earlier.
Okay. Anyone
That's
else?
not saying they're not going to replace them as well
No.
when they put them back, but
Okay. And then moving forward then to the Pelham. Again, you can see what they've asked for, and applying for funds for new flooring and upgrade security. Anyone like to comment on that?
I think the Pelham is an amazing setup, and what Ollie Jeffs does there from where it was 10 years ago, it's astonishing what they've done, and the ground floor is amazing. I didn't realise the flooring in the coffee lounge area would have needed replacing personally. I went in there 6 months ago and it looked all right to me, but that's not for me to say. But I think it's an amazing setup. The support they give to a lot of people that need, particularly around the suicide work that they do with people in the community, but it's a lot of money. Security is important because they do have some people in there who security is important to the Pelham.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Plim?
We've got a breakdown of the costs because there's two situations there. That's the funding for the new flooring and upgrade of security. If we had a breakdown of those two costs, then we'd have a better idea as to how that amount.
Yeah. Says it, Chair, in item 10, new flooring 944086, upgrade to security 516.
Okay.
You really hope that's going to be half and half.
Okay.
So the majority, Chair, is for flooring.
Okay. Thank you. And then Bexhill Breathers, there are no bank statements there, or safeguarding policy provided. So, anyone like to discuss that, or?
Unfortunately, I think they haven't met our criteria.
Yeah.
And so therefore we have to sort of say, sorry, come back to the next time, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to move on from that, and that's.
Could I just put a slightly different slant on that?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that use Bexhill Breathers, and without them, there's an increasing number of people who have chronic breathing difficulties, COPD, etc. in this town. They do have a bank account because their bank account details is on the paperwork as to where it's got to be sent to. But if it says here they've been advised by our RVA about bank statements, so they won't be able to. And it seems very harsh to discount somebody who's doing a lot of very good work because our process doesn't enable us to support, and we've moved processes before. So as an example, we're not meant to include running costs, but we do. So just because they don't produce a bank statement, should we really just rule it out, or should we try and help them to see whether, because they've been very specific over what they want the stuff for, and most of it is for equipment, which is what grants are for, whereas a lot of the other things aren't for equipment, they're for running costs, which is against our policy. It's a tricky one.
Could we maybe just ask them for bank statements, because it is £1,000, which we could then do next month,
We could do.
just to make sure that we're, because
Yeah.
what will happen is we say they haven't, if someone else then doesn't send bank statements,
Yeah.
then we then say, yeah, but they didn't send bank statements, they did.
Yeah.
So I think just to keep it, maybe we could just ask them to send bank statements, and then next month, you know, we can re-look at it. It's £1,000, which we can do every month anyway.
I'd be quite happy with that, and then we wouldn't have to revisit that if everyone else.
That's what
Through you, Chair, because I didn't print that off today, I haven't read it. Does it say that they've applied to anyone else?
No. it doesn't.
Because it would seem like the Bexhill Lions would be,
Yes, that would.
but yeah, if we're going to do it next month, we can.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to, even if it was next month, if it was a no, I wouldn't want to give them a no without saying, but you could go, you
Yeah.
could try.
Yeah.
But we'll do it next month.
Okay. So I'll move on to Bexhill and Rother Homelessness Unity Group. As you can see again, they're asking for funding for venue hire, equipment replacement, staffing costs. So, I mean, any discussions on that? Anyone like to?
Well, I'll start it off.
Yeah.
Entirely
Please.
running costs, entirely
Yeah, it's-
business
Yeah,
as usual,
that's not what we're.
and we're being asked to plug a gap because other people have stopped funding.
Okay. Anyone else like to comment on that?
As I didn't get the information, can you just tell me the amount they're asking for? I print my the day they get issued,
Yeah.
and that's it. I don't look again, so I should
Okay.
keep a look.
So it just says here, Councillor Plym, that it's a charity commission account and they're applying for funding for venue hire, equipment replacement, staffing costs,
To the value of.
£10,000.
So I'm going to just
So
and
and
sundries
sundries. Yeah.
due to decrease in funding from other bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So there is a slight downside, Chair, through that, is that we also gave them £500 in 2022 and 2024.
Right.
So we have already given them 2 grants. Does that make it difficult to say no to something this time?
I think £10,000 is a lot of money.
I agree.
And if they need £10,000, and they're obviously not running, you know, it's that thing that we've already said before,
Yep.
is that we can give out money, but we need to be quite strict on if it's regular, then there's an issue there, and obviously we need to then leave it to other organisations to be able to.
Well, through you, Chair, when you look at the grants that they've been given, certainly since 2022, so for the last 2 of the last 3 years, they've had significant money from Rother District Council, which I would imagine has now ceased. So they are obviously looking to try and backfill that. It doesn't meet our criteria, but
Yeah.
some of these others don't either. But 10,000 is just, you know, it even says in there food at 9,600 and staffing costs, and that's their overall running costs. But they do provide a very good
Yeah.
support mechanism in the town.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'd like to go back to white label, if that's okay, and then see any comments there, any suggestions with that, and what you think we should do. You got any, Councillor Drayson?
I would suggest that it's a starting point that we pay them the £7,000 they're asking for, based not least of all on the comment before that they got 5,000 last year and still lost money on the event. So I would propose paying them the 7,000 they're asking for.
Anyone else?
I
Councillor
could put
Wilson?
I'm very supportive. I thought their 70s event was brilliant, and I've got no reason to doubt that this won't be at the same level. But we do have a precedent with 2 events that we're already financing at £3,000 for over a 2-3 year period, with the Carnival and the After Dark in January. So we've set that level at 3,000. Is it that white label events don't have the same network, that they can't gain as much funding as others? Because I know the Carnival are now charging for party in the park, so maybe white label need to think about that as well. So I would suggest putting it at the different end and stick to the 3,000 that we've done for the Carnival and for After Dark. Because when we gave 5,000 last year, that I felt was a lot of money, but I thought it was the first time and it was the second attempt to put their granting in. So I would have thought they might have realised we need to get ahead of the game for their next event to get more funding in place, rather than assume that we can then get another 2,000 on top of what they had last year. Because it should only be to support, not to expect every year, hence why we've done it for 3 years for the Carnival and After Dark, and after that point they should have 3 years' worth of experience of getting their own funding and wouldn't need ours, and then other organisations could have that money, is my view.
That is what we've spoken about before, is with the events, that we hope that they can then gradually get their own funding. It is a great event. It brings a lot of people into town. I know personally that we are very busy. The town is very busy from this event. My suggestion from it would be that we gave 5 last year. I would say either we stick to the 5 or we go to 3,500, which is very similar to what you were saying with the carnival.
Yeah.
But any other suggestions on that, or an amount? I'm just chucking out. I'm just throwing out amounts, but obviously, if we can get to an amount,
find somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah, Councillor Flynn.
I'd like the proposal that we fund them for £5,000, similar to last year. I think it's a well worthwhile event, and I hope that they're able to break even this year.
Councillor Drayson.
Second that.
Okay.
Could I put an alternative proposal?
I think we have to vote on it if we've had a second.
No,
Okay.
My alternative proposal, which has been suggested by other councillors before, and I've listened to what people have said, is to do a phasing approach to grants. And I think that we could this year offer them the full 7, 5 next year, 3 the following year, and do a 3-year plan for them to get them, so it would be the same amount as if we gave them 5,000 a year now, but give them what they want this year, have the conversation to say next year you get 5 if you do an event, and the final year you get 3, and then you'll have to be self-sufficient. Because we've talked before about scaling down to make people think I've got to be more efficient and get more income. So that way they would get what they want this year, reduce down to the motion that has been proposed and seconded, and then the 3rd year would then be in line with what the carnival, and because this is a huge event. There's more people coming.
It's a great event. My only thing I'd like to say on it is obviously whoever asked, so they're asking for 7,000, so they're asking for more than. I personally think we do need to drop it a little instead of just saying yes to everything.
And maybe 5, 4, and 3.
I think. I'll let the other Councillor Plym first, please.
I think we should stick to the 5 because then we're being mindful of our budget.
Councillor Drayson?
We should stick to the 5. There doesn't follow that there would be an event next year. It doesn't follow that the annual event. So I think we treat this on its own as a single application.
Okay. So I've got a proposer, a seconder, and a vote. Then is that on the 5,000? Yeah. So a vote on the 5. Okay. Carried. Okay. And then next year, obviously, if it does come up again, then hopefully finance will review and know that it's come forward. Okay. Bexhill United Football Club. Should I have a vote, or anyone want to say anything on it again? Okay. Councillor Drayson?
I don't think we should give them any.
Okay. Do I have a second on
I
that?
hate saying that.
Second on that?
I think it's really difficult, Chair, because we don't really know what they want. It's between 2,000 and 5,000.
Well, we'd give 2. If we did, we would give 2. But Councillor Flynn?
But what are we getting for 2? What are we paying for?
The removal and re-erection of floodlights are 2,200.
Okay, right, fair enough. And then the remainder, the 5,000.
We wouldn't provide support for 2 to 3 teams or coaching training.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to work out how it all sort of.
That's how they've split it. They've
balances
got
out.
3 numbers,
Yeah.
which equal 5,000. So I'm reading this that they minimum they'd like 2 for the removal and re-erection of the floodlights, but ideally they'd like 5, which would then cover support of 2 to 3 teams and coach training.
Okay, so there's how much is the sponsorship on that then? Is that broken down?
They don't mention sponsorship on it.
Sponsorship of 2 to 3 teams and training for
support
coaches.
of.
Right, okay.
Oh, I've got sponsorship of.
Yeah.
It says
So
here
it's
entertaining.
Is sponsorship that our town council logo gets put on the kit or banners around the place and things? Or what? I don't know what we're getting for
Well,
that.
thanks to this council reintroducing the flag, they've got the Bexhill flag on the back. the shirts.
I mean, would you like to ask a question of that before to come? But we can't really grant it after today until September again. Then, but
Well,
Councillor Grayson.
my problem with, I mean, the 2,000 sounds really nice, but definitely moving the floodlights is a job they've got to do every year.
Yeah.
They have to move them into place and move them out of place.
Yeah.
And that is a running cost. I'm sorry, but I know it's nice and it's a nice round number that's the one that we could pay towards, but it is a running cost.
If they have anything that they can, if they're in the criteria for a grant, they can come back to us next month if they like and ask for, they've got the 1,000, they can ask if there's anything in the criteria that can help. It is Bexhill Football Club, it would be nice to help, but as you said, what they're asking for is an annual, we can't, it's a running cost.
I have a suggestion, which is to pay for the removal, the taking down, which has to come down imminently because of cricket. That gives them 3 to 4 months.
No, they're down.
Okay, so is this for the putting up and removal next year?
It'd be putting up.
So we could pay for one of them, i.e. 1,000, and that gives them until April next year to raise money or find a sponsor to actually contribute towards it, and they could have a sponsor's logo on the floodlights. Mm-hmm. So we could contribute half to that. That's what I would suggest.
Anyone else like to suggest anything or second that?
I think we're missing the opportunity of sponsorship. I think we need to be seriously considering that, because Councillor Drayson said that the team travel around the southeast of England to different towns and whatnot, and I think it speaks volumes that the local town council support their local football team.
So what would we say? Something like we would give the £2,000, but we would like our flag or our sponsorship known.
It's difficult because it's not broken down as easy as that, really, is it?
Because I'm not sure we can't do it next month. If we want to ask questions this month to get answers for the next time, surely that we can't say, oh no, you've got to wait till September now, because we're asking the questions in May, and we need to go back to them and say, for a start, are we talking first team, under 23s? Because if it's the under 7s, we're not going to get a lot of coverage.
I'm quietly confident, Chair, that we already have Bexhill Town Council on the shirts of either the ladies or the under 12s from the first 2 years of administration, because I've seen pictures with Bexhill Town Council on their shirts. I'm not sure which team it is. I'm not sure.
Ladies, there's a Bexhill team.
There was bought kit for them.
Yeah. Which is a form of sponsorship if you buy the kit. There's some questions, isn't there?
So shall we ask questions to them and then come back to it next month? Because I believe we can then still pay out if we want to with the questions of what they actually.
Do we need to specify the questions, or have you got?
Can you specify?
So I believe the questions we're asking is. Is that an annual replacement with the floodlights? Is that an annual thing? And then the sponsorships, does that mean that we will be sponsors and actually on the kit, and also
what team
would that be for?
Just a point of order, Chair, I think I'm right in saying if we come back next month, they would only be able to have up to 1,000.
Believe
because they can only have
if we've opened the gate
if we've opened the questions, I believe we can still.
Okay, just checking. I don't want to get to next month and then go, no, you're only for 1,000.
Yeah, it's completely your call.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, so that solves that. With the Pelham, I know there was some discussion about maybe paying for the upgrade of security. We just need to be very mindful of our budget, of what we've got left to spend, and we've still got 10 months after this to go. So,
and 2 of those 10 months have up to 10,000 that we can award. again, as I said earlier,
realistically, we probably need to revisit the amount that we give and how many. Because if we're open to £10,000 grants, then we need to, and that's over 3 months. We realistically, and I know it'd be very difficult to choose, but realistically, there needs to be £30,000 through the year, £10,000 each one of those, at least £10,000 on each of those to grant. Otherwise, we need to put our grants down.
Yeah.
Bring it down to 5,000 again, you know, and then you've got 3 months of where it's up to 5,000. I'm not sure what it is. I'm just putting it out there that obviously we've got 3 months where we give out £10,000. That's £30,000, which leaves us with 12,000 for the whole year, which is then £1,000 a month. So we really need to revisit that and chat. So, Councillor Plym?
Yeah. I'm struggling for interpretation of this as well, because security, is that not running costs? Although it's a small amount. And how we're interpreting running costs throughout the whole of this procedure, it's
a grey area, really, isn't it? A little bit.
I mean, I don't think we'd object to helping them out with their security there and upgrading their security. And £500, I think that should be quite easy to sort of agree to. It's the remainder with replacing their flooring. That amount of money, I think, we could possibly look at, and with a view to our budget and saying, well, actually, we can't afford the 9,000 odd that you're asking for, but we're probably half that and half of 4,500.
If you added security to that, that would make it 5,000 they would have. So half what they're after.
But we're looking at.
We'd still be very close to spending over half of our.
But you would be if you gave 5 there and 5 to the Pelham. Obviously, I don't know what we'd say with the Rother because we haven't got there yet. But that would be 10,000.
Yeah.
Which would be your May of your £10,000
Yeah.
budget realistically. Because how you'd really look at it is you'd have. It's not that now, but if we were to relook at it and that is what we're giving 10,000, then you'd be looking at giving 10,000 in May, 10,000 in September, and 10,000 in January.
If we were to agree that, that would only leave you 21,500 for 10 months of the year.
Yeah.
Of which 2 of those you could give 10,000, which would only give you 1,000 for the everyone else.
But that's where our grants policy doesn't quite work with what we do. We either bring that 10,000 down to 5,000, which is probably what I would recommend,
or increase the 42,000.
Yeah, it's something we can talk about. But I'd personally, looking at it, I think the 10,000 probably should maybe come down a little bit. But again, that's up to councillors and what we agree with when we do have that discussion.
How do we revisit that policy? Is it done at next week's full council? Is it? I can't remember what's on the list of policies that are.
We can ask a question. If we ask a question, then that.
It's this committee.
We could put a motion forward.
Yeah, so you did this last year.
We
and
did.
I think you did it in June.
We do it every
Yeah,
year.
every year.
We change our minds every year.
So if you wanted to put a motion forward that you would revisit the grants policy, then you can do that. And what we can do is provide a report saying where extra money could come from. And you can look at that at the next meeting or meeting after.
It's very clear to me, Chair, that it's not fit for purpose right now because word is getting around that
we give 10,000.
I
I think it's open for, personally, I think it's open for abuse basically with the 10,000.
Potentially, yeah.
Not just abuse, but misinterpretation, because we talk about 10,000 and then here we've got 2 applications for 10,000. No, it's a share of 10,000.
Well, nearly 3 applications, 7,000, pretty much 10,000. So
we haven't conveyed this for a share of.
Put a motion forward today to have next meeting have a look at the budget,
the grants policy.
The grants policy, yeah.
Or does it need a working group to go away and revisit it and bring it back to this one? We've done that before with policies.
But would it need a working group? Because there's not many of us anyway, so I think it'll be easier if we just agreed between all the councillors in finance, and then it goes to full council.
But full council have to approve it as well.
But we have to put that forward to full council. So could we put a motion forward today for next finance meeting to discuss?
To have a look at it and
Yeah.
then recommend it to full council. Yeah.
Okay, can we do that? And then Councillor Wilson put that forward?
Yep.
Yeah,
Go on and do that.
a seconder for that? Yep. And a vote on that, please? So,
Doesn't help us though with the Pelham.
it doesn't, no, but we'll
It's
get to,
still
is that okay,
stuck.
Joey? Yeah, okay, thank you. So yeah, going back to the Pelham now,
Well, my proposal would be to pay for the security, the £500, and then 4,500 contribution towards the flooring.
do I have a seconder for that? Sorry. Anyone else have any suggestions?
When you look at the numbers of how many people that they support, an awful lot of people go into there. The same as an awful lot of people go to the event we've spoken about.
Could we do what we've done with the football club, is what flooring, because that is a lot of money for flooring, what flooring they actually need to change, because as I said, I know from myself that is a big chunk for flooring.
Does add, Chair, that it needs a new sub-base. So if they've got to take the floor out and
Yes, not the surface.
can go it all out and then put a new sub-base in and then flooring on top,
Okay.
that's probably why it's that much money. So somebody must be telling them, because you wouldn't want to take a concrete floor out unless you had to.
I've had similar with one of my businesses, so I know that it is expensive. Okay. Could we get some, maybe ask for more information on that though, of why it needs to be done, or is that Councillor Grayson?
I think we're straying into what we did with this building there, and they've obviously been told they're not doing it for the sheer fun of it. They obviously know they need a new floor. They've got a quote for a new floor, and that's the cost of the new floor. But it might be part of the cost again. I don't know if they're going anywhere else for money.
Pelham is a great organisation. They do a lot for, you know.
They do, and they raise funds themselves. Their
Yeah.
24-hour run they do puts money into the pot, and they're supported by RVA and lots of other organisations. I don't know. I'm really mindful of our budget, and that's my issue.
Yeah.
I would very much like to say give them the whole lot because they do such a great job, but we've got the restriction over the 42,000. I wonder if we could ask when they plan to do it, because if we change our process we might have more money and we could support the whole lot. And they can't just put a sub base in and then not put any flooring on top. It's an all or nothing, isn't it? And again, if we just give them the half of it, so as Councillor Plym said, the security plus half of the other, they might not be able to do it.
But there would be grants out there. There would be other grants out there to help them do it if
There would
they
be.
needed to do
I
it.
assume
So
it would be.
It might very well open the door to other grants as well.
if they've got the money,
Matching
if they've
shot.
got half the money, then they probably would get grants for other. I mean, it is. I with this, I would second Councillor Plym's suggestion. If anyone, can we have a vote on that, or Councillor Drayson?
The only, again, it's back with the budget, because we've done that for 5,000. We're asking Bexhill United some questions.
Yeah.
If we do what Councillor Plym's saying here, we've used it.
Yeah.
We are giving half, aren't you? And
Yeah,
then that's
but that's
10,000 with white label. It's 10,000.
Yeah, that's the 10,000.
And then Bexhill United are asking for 2 to 5. So if you went 2,
Yeah.
they're asking for 2 to 5. If you went with 2, that's 12. And then don't forget, it's £1,000 after that every month,
Yeah.
rather than 10,000 until September.
And January.
By then we would have had.
You'll only have 19,500 left if you agree with that. With two £10,000 months. So assume they take 10 out, that's 9,000. That's virtually gone. There's no other money.
That's
in the
why we're
budget.
saying now that it just doesn't work with 10,000.
Yeah.
You know, you either have to lower that amount,
That's
which
what I'm
again
wondering
we
if
would discuss and see what the Councillor Drayson.
So my alternative would be, and it sounds terrible, is just to pay for the upgrade to the security and not give them anything towards the flooring, because again, it's not going to be done in a day, is it? I mean, it could well be that in September they come back. But
That's what I was just about to say. They
We
could
can't
revisit
use
in
that.
September after we've had our discussion of what we're doing, and go from there.
I think I might prefer that to pay for the security, give them the opportunity to come back in September, by which time we might have changed our process,
Yeah.
better fit, and then we hold money in the bank subject to. I would like to know when they plan to do the new flooring,
Okay.
because they might be planning for next year, we don't know.
Okay. So, Councillor King.
I just think we ought to be very mindful as we go forward that we're not going to give an indication that anyone else will be getting a grant
Oh,
more
absolutely
than
not.
we've just refused the Pelham.
Yeah.
Because we've refused the Pelham for a particular reason, budgets. And so we don't want to sort of further down the line give somebody else
Yeah.
that same amount and disregard the budget. So
Yeah.
we've got to be consistent on this.
Could we ask them, could we say that we're going to pay the upgrade for security, but come back to us in September and see for this? Because it'll be them next anyway, because after this, no one can come back to us for this amount anyway until September.
So you there was Councillor Flynn talking about the next two though.
Yeah.
That's right, because I know my view on the next two, which, but yeah, we can't prejudge.
Yeah. Okay, so can I, if we went with Councillor Wilson's with the security, and then they can come back to us in September for the other money for the floor, would I have a seconder on that? Yeah, and a vote on that, please? Yeah. So that's to pay for security at upgrades, and then for them to come back to us in September and see if our policy's changed. Thank you. Right, moving on to Bexhill Breathers. So as Councillor Wilson said earlier, we do know that they're we know the organisation, we know what they do help. It's £1,000. Councillor Drayson.
3 years ago, can I just ask Councillor Wilson, so do people using their services pay?
According to their paperwork, they charge a nominal £15 a month for classes, which includes loan of equipment. But having also reread, they don't actually have that many current members, and that could be because they don't have enough equipment for people to use. I think I read somewhere here, how many members do you have? 14 and growing. And obviously the more equipment you get there, because I know quite a few people with COPD who probably never heard of Bexhill Breathers, and if we paid them some of this for some of the equipment they're asking, they would have more equipment to then encourage more people to go there.
They're also asking for marketing materials and printing, so they would advertise widely.
But they
It's
have
all
been,
about trying to increase their service, isn't it?
they've been very specific in what they're asking for, and some of it is room hire, strangely enough at the Pelham, but a lot of it is for equipment to help people with gentle exercise to help, which sometimes it's provided by the great National Health Service, but other times you need things like Bexhill Breathers to do a little bit extra.
Yeah.
So I was sort of supporting the 1,000, but having had the conversation that we've just had with regard to the Pelham, and seeing that they have a growing membership of 14, I probably wouldn't support £1,000, but I think I might support something to buy some of the equipment that they've mentioned in box 10.
Okay. Anyone else like to comment on that? Councillor Drayson?
My other view is we couldn't do the Pelham because we haven't got the money to help them now. We have got the money to give Bexhill breathers exactly what they're asking for.
Councillor Plym?
Yeah, I think as a well-made point, we have got the smaller amount of money is available for those that are asking for the smaller amount of money, and I think £1,000 we should be. I fully support the grant for £1,000.
Okay. So, are you seconding that? So, Councillor Drayson?
One of us is one of us made it, one of us said it.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. And then can I get a vote on that then, please, for that to go through? Okay, so that's fine. So Bexhill Breathers, yeah. And then moving on to Bexhill and Rother Homelessness Unity Group. I think we've already had this discussion with the Pelham, so I think it'll probably be the same with Bexhill and Rother, but would anyone like to discuss? Councillor Drayson.
It is slightly different to the Pelham because the Pelham is asking for a specific one-off thing, which is the flooring, whereas this one is
That's true.
everyday operation.
Yeah, staffing costs, sundries, yeah. Okay. So I'm going to put this forward, obviously. I'll just put forward that we're not going to go forward with that.
I second that.
Second that. And then a vote on that, please. Okay. Thank you. Right, that's that part done. We can now move on to B, which is to receive updated draft for allocating seal funds to community groups. Still underway, so should be at our next meeting. Yep. And then Town Council Hub. The Hub report will follow at our next meeting as well. Okay. Recommendations from committees, there are none. Motions from councillors, there are none. Correspondence and matters for information, there are none. Questions are here. Questions from councillors. So there's a question there and there's an answer there. So I'll move to B on that, 12B, to receive any questions from councillors and any future agenda items. Do I have any? No? Can I move on? So 12C, to consider any new risks for future mitigation. No. Thank you. 13 is an overview of, as you can see, and the date of our next meeting is to be agreed at an annual statutory meeting on the 21st of May. Thank you very much. Meeting closed.